Hey, everybody. Welcome to our continuing conversation. This is part 3 of our conversation with Joe Steigman from Legacy Entrepreneurs, Rebecca Sabogal and Mike Rincker from PIC Consultants. And we are here today at Dallas Amsden with Communicate to Succeed. We've been having a conversation for small and medium-sized business owners as to some of the pain points that they deal with. We've talked about lack of clarity in a previous video. We've talked about this idea of bottlenecks and how we can remove those bottlenecks. All of this, of course, is not just so you can have present operations that are working well, present sales that are growing and expanding, but so that your long-term vision for you as a small to medium-sized business owner, you can realize that the work that you've been laying your life down for years, maybe decades at this point, will have a good payoff here. And it all starts with who you serve, how well you serve your team as well, the problems that you solve for them, but also the long-term vision that you have. So one of the issues that we know a lot of small business owners deal with is this idea of poor performance from their team members. And Mike, I'm actually going to start with you if you're okay with this, because sometimes the sales process has some poor performance issues, and then Rebecca will toss it your way as well. Poor performance across the board can diminish culture. It can diminish results. But Mike, talk to us a little bit specifically about poor performance when it comes to the sales process.
Yeah, I think when you get a sales team on board, the sales process, it doesn't just stop once the prospect signs the contract, because then there's what does it look like once the customer is handed off to CS, the customer success? Are they having a good conversation with that now customer and having conversations about possible other ways that we can help that company and sell additional services or products to them? So really, poor performance or the performance problem, it starts from prospecting and it keeps going way past the sale. So one thing that, I like to try and do is just make sure that everybody on the team is clear on what do we do every single step of the way, and have that labeled, outlined somewhere where everybody can reference it. Yeah. And I'll specifically reference the spot of the sales process that typically most companies drop the ball on, and it's a super easy, low-hanging fruit that they would be able to start as soon as they would, even watch this video. And it typically lands, if you're lucky enough as an organization to have customers who send in some sort of request, or they fill out a form, or you show some level of interest. If your company has a process where everybody is on board with who's going to contact that prospect, if you can get in touch with them within 5 minutes of that outreach from the prospect, and this is pulling from gong.com, this is a 400% more likely increase in that lead converting to a sale.
Yeah.
So having a prospect contacted by a sales rep. Also, by the way, most prospects will choose the first person that contacts them, because they're probably not just reaching out to just you.
Yep.
So there's a lot of competition out there. But if your team knows that, hey, we've got one person following up on this interested prospect, we are more than likely going to convert them at a 400% more likely rate than if we would wait 10, 15 minutes down the road.
Yep, absolutely. I remember back in my sales day, same issue. I called somebody within just a couple of minutes because the form came through, and they went, "Are you for real right now?"
Yeah.
Like, we got the deal because of that.
Yeah, you know, well taught.
Yeah. So just systems help put poor performance, lower that, and then you've got structure in place that's easily followable, if that's a word. Rebecca, I don't know if that's a word or not. Talk to me when it comes to some of the poor performance that you have seen with business leaders and some of the help that you've been able to provide with them.
Yeah, I would say, really this ducktails off of Mike's, all the points about working with customer success. One of the most critical junctures is between when sales hands off to operations. So you've done the deal, you've won the client. Now it's time to actually go implement the solution or deliver that product and then operate that. And the problem is that the trust and the confidence that's so hard fought and won in sales can be lost very easily in delivery and operations. And so making sure that everything that is said from a sales standpoint and what is promised to the customer actually is supportable, is able to be delivered on time, as expected, in alignment with what that customer needs and wants, and you've all aligned well, it takes the whole organization humming well. And so when there's so many things that can go wrong. I'm sure anybody can tell you a million different stories about, I didn't get what I wanted, or, they told me it was going to be this, but I actually got that. And it's when you're not able to deliver what people are expecting, it can really ruin trust and hurt that relationship. And then you go into things like increased churn, losing those customers. And so we have seen that when there are implemented systems and processes and structures, and you're very, very clear through something like a RACI, which is a chart that defines who's responsible for what, when, how, what not. You can see who's responsible in your organization, and people actually adapt and use that and know who's doing what, when, how, and where, and you know where your processes are, and you know where your procedures are, and everybody's on the same page. You can actually improve your NPS scores significantly. We've seen 18 points increase of NPS. And when you increase that NPS, which is Net Promoter Score, which is the highest amount of people that are going to, that say, I'm an 8 or usually a 9 or a 10, like I am strongly going to refer your service to somebody else. When that happens, that is the strongest form of marketing, is word of mouth referrals.
100%.
Because if you know somebody, you trust them, and they've worked with somebody, they're going to want to work with that person without looking probably at any other competitors most of the time, because that word of mouth is how we work as humans. So you want that NPS score really high, because that's indicative of how strong your entire operations strategy, everything, that machine is coming together, and the health of your future organization. Because if you have a problem in NPS and churn, that's a big problem. Something is breaking because you're getting customers in sales, but you're losing them in operations. So, that's something we work on, and definitely want to help folks with.
I love that. When I come at this angle, Rebecca, as a communication issue as well, and Mike, this kind of speaks to what you were saying, but sales is over promising, and then we can't deliver, we can't fulfill on that. There's a communication issue there. So then that creates a gap for poor performance. The other issue is it can be with marketing and sales. Like you always, as the leader, and I know, Joe, you're going to talk to some of this leadership issue when things are not working out, right? You're going to talk about that in just a moment. But from my side there's this technique called a gap communication, gap conversation, where when you've built an expectation with your team members, if you have communicated clearly, proactively, and precisely what is required, every now and again, the gap is in the system. So for the team, like with Mike and Rebecca, I know that's what you guys do with PIC. Sometimes the gap is in the system or the project management or the operating manual, so to speak. Other times it's actually in the person itself. And so as a leader, if someone is not abiding by the operating system, you get to have a soft skills conversation, a little bit of a nuanced conversation. And that's called a gap, which is simply, Mike, if you don't mind, I'll use you as an example here. But let's say Mike and I have agreed upon something that Mike is going to do. We have this expectation now, Mike is going to do this. And then when I see something radically different from Mike's performance, the conversation is not, Mike, you suck, right? Because that's a personal attack. Mike, I don't think, Mike, you're probably not going to handle that well. If I'm like, Mike, you suck. He just shrugged. He was like, I'll probably.
You take the hit.
But the difference is actually the gap conversation. And in a gap conversation, it's, hey, Mike, we need to sit down because we had agreed upon X and I'm seeing Z. Am I seeing this correctly? And when Mike agrees, yeah, you're seeing that correctly, then I get to get on the same side of the table with Mike and say, how can I support you in closing this gap between X and Z? And we figure out the why. Bad pun there. Bad dad joke, everybody. Sorry. But that's the idea with a gap conversation is it's a personnel, whenever it's a personnel issue, you can say to that person, how can I help you close the gap? Sometimes that doesn't happen in poor performance, which, Joe, that kind of leads to the conversation point with you. When we are having poor performance with people, what's the leadership issue that needs to be addressed for the long-term success of the company and the valuation?
So Dallas, if they're working with you and they're learning how to communicate, have those conversations, if they've worked with Pick and they have a strategy and a system and a handoff, and I think in an earlier conversation we had said, hey, outline the benchmarks and what the vision is and like have everyone on the same page, right? And if they're not hitting them, they got to go.
Right.
I have this conversation with owners who are thinking of exiting or selling, and they're like, "Oh, I do have an ops manager, but man, I just think I need to hire someone. I don't know because I always have to supervise them. You don't have time for that,
Right.
and it's hard. Owners struggle with the communication. It's not something that people are naturally trained for. But if we're going to market and a buyer's looking at this business and they get the sense that the ops manager or general manager, sales team are not good performers,
Yeah.
run away, right? Because I want to know last 3 to 5 years of performance are strong, and I'm going to come in. I don't know anything about these people. I don't know anything about this specific business. I have a ton of risk. I'm on the wrong end of asymmetric information. And if I think that there are like problems here, I'm gonna run away, or I'm not gonna pay you some dollar amount that you think it's worth.
Yeah.
And so many buyers species, especially on the sales side of this, is, hey, you know what? I want to buy this business, and it's kind of okay that the sales system isn't that great. Customer concentration issues aside, right?
Sure.
Because my whole thesis is I'm going to take a decent business that's not doing good marketing, and I'm just going to sales and marketing this thing to the rocket ship. Then I'm going to bring on Mike and Rebecca later.
Yeah.
Don't give them that ground. Like, why let someone capture all that value for you?
Right.
You should do it on your own. You need to protect like 3 to 5 years of earnings.
Yeah.
And I just see so much drag coming out of poor performers that owners don't want to get rid of. They have a history with people. I get that. It's hard to let people go, right? No one should be firing other people or like suggesting that they be fired if they won't do it themselves. And that's really tough because people don't want to do it. But unlike a Fortune 100, 500 company where it's like, oh, some stockholder somewhere isn't like earning another penny because of some poor performance somewhere. This is like, Dallas, this is your money.
Right.
Every day you're losing money out of your wallet. And I'm very passionate about it. Like, that's just not acceptable. Like, don't let that happen to you. So.
Well, and I think to a point that you've made on a previous video, Rebecca, about just the lack of clarity, when there's not a clear vision, then it creates more space for poor performance. When there's a clear vision, a clear set of values for a team, a clear set of expectations, if someone is continually not aligning with that, it actually makes the exit conversation easier.
Yes.
Like, Mike, is this really the right thing for you? We keep struggling with A, B, and C, and that's part of our values here. Mike, at some point, may self-select out too, because it's not in alignment for who Mike wants to be. So again, holistically, everybody, if you're watching this video, lack of clarity, lack of the presence of bottlenecks, the poor performance, all of those things stem from this idea that you are the culture creator inside of your business. And maybe that's something that you don't know a lot about. That's why Pick exists. That's why Communicate to Succeed exists. That's why Legacy Entrepreneurs exist. That's why we partner together to help you, so that you can get clarity around that, so that you can get vision and values and mission and action and operation and ultimately valuation. And we're going to talk about that in the next video. But Mike, Rebecca, Joe, any final things you would like to say about this poor performance issue before we go?
Yeah, you need to have a good culture and standards and a vision before you start axing people. I'm not just saying fire people for the sake
100%.
right? Like, you as a leader,
right?
standards. But once you've done your part as a leader, and I think Dallas, like, if they're partnering with you, they're communicating, they're setting that vision. It's like, all right, I've looked with it from within, and I've done what I can. Now you have to protect yourself. So I just don't want to be just like,
100%. Yeah. Don't axe before you try and build that bridge. 100%. So this is great, everybody. Again, if you're listening, we've got resources for you. We've got engagement quizzes and clarity quizzes for you, as well as questions you can ask your team that lead them to discovery. So we've talked about a lot in these last couple of videos. We got one more in this particular series for you on sales and growth, and it's about valuation. So can't wait to have you join us, Mike, Rebecca, Joe. Thank you so much. Everybody else, go out there, have a championship day.